Welcome back to Big South Member Recognition Week. As this week it's the UNC Asheville Bulldogs and new women's basketball head coach Honey Brown. Coach, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you. And you've been with Asheville for 8 years. You're moving over from the assistant coach chair now to the head coach role. So what does that mean for you to be in this position?
Well, it's such an honor. I mean, Brenda laid such a just a great foundation here, and is just, I think, a legend as far as how she approached things, how she was able to turn the program around, the foundation that she laid on and off the court with our team. So it's an honor. I look at it as a privilege and a challenge, and not so much as pressure. Of course, we always put pressure on ourselves, but I'm super excited. And of course, it was a little bit bittersweet when she told me that she was going to step away and pursue a life with her husband away a little bit. But she's always watching, she's always helping, and I'm just extremely excited about the opportunity and thankful that Janet Cohn, our athletic director, and Chancellor Cable gave me this opportunity.
So with Coach Mock, you won 2 Big South championships. You made 4 postseason appearances. You mentioned she's still kind of involved. Have you had conversations with her since taking over? And have you talked about some situations that maybe you hadn't experienced before?
Oh, of course. I mean, we talk. Well, there for a while we were talking quite a bit. And then, of course, you get busier and she gets a little busier. I actually talked to her last week, and we try to connect by text or email or by phone call quite often, just because I'm always asking her advice and, hey, how did you do this time of year? And especially as we've gotten further into practice and putting in offenses and defenses and things like that, like her thought process and some of the way that she did things, forms or handouts or whatever that might be. But just advice. I mean, of course, she hasn't dealt with COVID either. It was funny. She and I talked about that, and she even said, hey, I don't have all the answers because I haven't coached in COVID either, like what you should and shouldn't do. But it's always somebody good to get advice from, just to get to bounce ideas off of. Always is willing to play devil's advocate in a good way, to give me ideas on how I can approach things or how I might want to run a certain zone offense or why. And so that's been great from her. And just I'm grateful and thankful that she's willing to be so involved. She's actually a little upset right now, Mark, of as far as not being able to think about coming to games. I think she's chomping at the bit to watch folks. And but she'll be dialing in on ESPN Plus, and we'll try to get to as many games, I think, as she can.
Well, you have 2 former players on your coaching staff, Paige Love and Jessica Wall. How much of a benefit is that to a head coach, as well from a personal standpoint, having them on the staff?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I got the job, it was funny, Brenda and I had talked about this before just because of how much Paige has grown as a coach. Paige was at Texas State for 4 years, and she's done so many things there, like so many, she was asked to do so much and a lot was put on her plate that I knew how much that she was evolving. I felt like I've been a mentor to her throughout this process in her coaching career. So, keeping up with her and helping her through all these years, I kind of knew how much that she had been doing and how much she had grown and how valued she was even there. And I knew that her family being in North Carolina, that I knew when I got the job, she was somebody that I thought would be a great addition to our staff, somebody that our players could relate to, somebody that as an alum recruits could apply to as well, just because she's lived it every day. She's lived it as a student. She's lived it as a basketball player. She's lived coaching under, me coaching her. Even as an assistant, I was a guard coach, and so I worked with Paige quite a bit. So I just felt like she was going to bring so many facets to our program that, to me, it was just a no-brainer. It was just she was my first recruit in so many ways because of getting her to join us. And I knew that her passion and love for Asheville would shine, and that's what she's brought, I think. And she's just such a great person on and off the court. I knew our players would love her, and I knew they would relate to her. And she really goes above and beyond trying to make them feel special and loved. And that's what we are about as well, is what we want to help do for our players on and off the court. And then you mentioned Jessica Wall as well. So Jessica was another one who was at Lynchburg and as a graduate assistant, and is actually continuing her master's as she's working for us. But I know she wants to pursue this or wants to give it a really good go in this profession and see if this is her path. She is such a such a coachable player. I knew that she would be able to be a sponge and be willing to take it all in, not just from me, but from our other staff members. And she is just one of those consistent, steady people. And I think for her, she feels even more comfortable finding her voice as a coach in a trusted, in a system here around people that she feels good about, and she knows where we're coming from. A lot of the language or the terminology or things, it's always good to hear and to stretch yourself and learn other things, but it's also good as a young coach sometimes to feel comfortable. And Jessica is a legend anyway in our program. So some of our players, our seniors actually, played with her senior year, and they know how good of a player she was. So any advice she wants to give them, they definitely tune in for sure. But I wanted to bring both of those back because loyalty and trust is huge for me. And I knew, no question, I was going to have to worry about that or can think about what they were saying or doing for our program. I always know it's in the best interest of myself and our program and our staff. And they're just two up-and-coming great coaches, and I'm excited that they're Bulldogs.
So what are some new things you're going to look to implement into the team?
You know what? That's a tough question. It's one of those things that I think that's what's harder for me is because a lot of things that have gone well for us here and being here and what's worked well in the conference. But I also have to be me. I'm not Brenda. And even though I've taken over a very successful program, kind of sifting through what worked, but what's also my personality. And I think that, maybe a little bit more up tempo, maybe a little bit more 3-point shooting in some facets, maybe a little bit more pressing. I mean, those are things that we've always done in the past, and it kind of depends on the year and the personnel that we have. But I think that might be my style a little bit more. So you may see that just, amped up just a little bit more in some of those categories. But like I said, Brenda was such a great coach that, I'd be a little bit foolish to try to reinvent the wheel here, I think. I'm not sure that would be a smart coaching move in my first year.
So will there be any new things about you that the team's going to learn from a coaching standpoint?
You know what, we talked about that the other day, and I think I was always pretty forward with our players. I talk about, wanting truth over harmony. Like, I'm big about everybody, getting along and wanting to hear things. But I think on the court, you've got to have direct communication, and they need to know where you stand or what you like or don't like. And I think they've always heard that from me. I think now they're just, I don't want to say they're hearing it all the time, but they're hearing it on both ends of the court. I coached the guards before, and Brenda had me be more the lead assistant when it came to defense. And so now, I'm more, of course, being the head coach, the lead in a lot of areas. So I think they're just hearing that maybe a little bit more. So that's a little bit different. But I'm very grateful to Brenda for giving me the opportunity to have such a voice in practice. I think that's been an easy transition for our returners because they were already used to me being able to say a lot and have ownership of some things. And so now it's a little bit easier for them to continue to follow me versus being somebody brand new or somebody that didn't have as big of a role on our squad last year.
So back in the day when you were in college, as a junior, you ranked third in the nation in 3-point shooting. Will we see more outside shooting from the Bulldogs going forward?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was fortunate that year. We had some really good post players. And so people schemed, they had to double those folks. I would consider myself maybe a better passer than a shooter at times. And because of people's schemes, it left me open. And I actually got yelled at. Wes Moore, who's at NC State, was actually my college coach for 3 of my years. And I got yelled at a few times for not shooting. If you can imagine that in this day and age, Mark, that doesn't happen that often. But I was, grateful back then to have some open shots and make those. And I do think it's something that we value here. It is something that we recruited towards. We've got some players that can stretch the floor maybe a little bit more than what we've seen in the last couple of seasons. Our championship years, we were one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the conference. So I think that's something that even when Brenda's here, we've continued to evolve our recruiting towards that. And that's just the nature of the game a little bit now too, Mark, as far as spreading the floor a little bit more. So I think having a few more weapons that can shoot it is definitely, I'm sure our numbers will go up just because we maybe have a few more weapons than what we've had in the past.
So you've been coaching for 22 years, 18 on the collegiate side. At what point did you realize you wanted to pursue a coaching career?
Oh gosh, way back. I mean, probably like, early. I was, just enjoyed learning the game and learning the nuances of every sport. My dad is a sports junkie and I get it from him, and just enjoy watching all kinds of strategy, even watching the World Series and just what they're doing and why. And so I think it just came very natural to me. At what age? Gosh, it was probably still very young. I mean, probably, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. When you start really thinking about careers, I thought, well, I'll be a teacher and coach. I mean, that's what I thought I would do just because I knew that I love sports and why would I not want to be around that? And I also felt like I was somewhat of a coach on the floor, even at a young age, playing point guard or playing position on a field in softball or whatever it might be that, you might have to be a little bit more of a leader. I just felt like that was easy for me, and I didn't really see myself doing much else at that point, even early in life.
Well, we're going to switch gears to some lighter questions as we continue to get to know you. The first one is, you have a great story about your first name. Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, Honey Lynn Brown. You don't hear that very often. I'm from Tennessee. I'm sure everybody out there getting this accent over and over again are recognizing I'm not a New Yorker. I was actually supposed to be named Jennifer, and I'm not sure. I think the story, my mom, even with the baby shower, even that was kind of the deal. And my dad heard the name Honey Lynn and just really liked it and loved it. And he and my mother argued for a couple of days. When I was born, I didn't have a name apparently for 2 days. Back then they put like a band on you and whatever. It was just, I was the brown baby, not, a name. And, apparently my dad won because here I am, Honey Lynn Brown. And it's great for people to remember you. But I tell people all the time, my siblings have normal names. Amanda, Kelly, and then Jay, and his is James Brown, which is funny as well. But it's just one of those things that, people don't, I get a lot. I tell you what, if I had a dollar or a dime for every time somebody asked me if that was my real name, then I might not have to be sitting here with you right now, Mark. I would, be on a boat somewhere. But it's great. I embrace it, of course, and it's just one of those things that you just, you know how to answer questions when people ask you if they hear you correctly, if your name is really Honey.
So what age did you start playing basketball, and who introduced you to the game?
My dad introduced me to the game, and it was fourth grade. I started playing back then what was called junior pro basketball, which was, you practice one night a week and you have like half the court or whatever, and you play on Saturdays. And it's funny, Amanda Butler, who is the head coach at Clemson, she and I played junior pro basketball together for, was it 3 years or something like that? We were called the Blue Jays all those years, and my dad and her dad coached the team, and man, those are just great memories. She and I still talk about some of those today, and it was I'll never forget being able to get started in basketball and show up in the gym, and you walk in with your basketball in your hand and your wristbands and whatever else you had back then. It was a good time.
So who is your favorite basketball player?
Oh gosh, it's crazy because growing up, you didn't see, of course, women's basketball on TV very much. And so it was like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, because it was the Lakers and the Celtics quite a bit. And so I would say, Larry Bird or Magic Johnson, one of those two back then. And then as I've evolved and was watching players, I really enjoyed Tamika Catchings and her career, because she was such the epitome of what I think I was, and what I want to be is, as a coach even, is very selfless and, servant leader. What did her team need? And she's won championships at all levels. She's done it in multiple positions. Just a great person, a great leader, and rebounder, takes charges, defensive player of the year, scores when her team needs it. Just all of those facets. I just really became a big fan of hers when she was at Tennessee, and then have followed her career pretty closely throughout her career when she was in the pros with the Fever. So that's kind of just hitting me off the top of the cuff there on that question. That's kind of who comes to mind to start. But there's so many greats out there. Gosh, because I do watch basketball a ton, there's just so many great players out there, men's and women's, that I could say that I, any day could say that I love.
So if you could pick anyone to shoot some hoops with, who would that be?
That's a hard one. I think because she's passed, it probably would be Pat Summitt. Luckily my dad, is still here and involved in my life. And, but I think it would be Pat, just because she was such an influence on me as a player, watching the Lady Vols growing up in Tennessee, and then how I've evolved as a coach, hearing her speak, going to games, being around her. I was fortunate enough to be around her a little bit. We just love to shoot hoops from her and talk about life, talk about coaching, talk about how you impact players on and off the floor. She's just somebody I think that we miss in our game, and I would love to have the opportunity to spend a little time with her again.
Going back to your three-point days when you were in school, and probably even till today, which current Big South women's coach would you like to challenge to a friendly three-point contest?
Well, I tell you what, I first was, when you think about challenging folks, you're like, okay, who's the oldest, maybe the slowest? That way I can win because I'm a competitor. But being the competitor, I would want to challenge even Becky Burke, another young coach in the business. And the reason why is because, she's young, was a shooter, came from Louisville. Why not try to challenge yourself against maybe one of the younger dogs out there, or one of the ones that might be known for some scoring. So let's go with Becky.
And Coach, the last question we have for you, what is something about you that your team still does not know about and would be surprised to learn?
Oh gosh, that's hard. Not that they don't know everything. I'm just trying to think of something that would be clever that they don't know as much about me. I've been to quite a few concerts in my day, and I think my range of concerts probably would surprise some of them, from Patti LaBelle, Whitney Houston, Rod Stewart, to Janet Jackson. I'm a huge Janet Jackson fan back in the day. Can't dance like Janet, but really loved Janet Jackson back in the day. So that might be a new one for them, that they may not realize how much that I enjoyed her. But I saw her in concert a few times, actually.
Well, Coach, we really enjoyed hearing your backstory on your coaching career, as well as your personal moments. We really appreciate you taking the time to get for us to get to know you better. We wish you all the best of luck as the Bulldogs get ready for the season.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.